Woods and Waters with your host, Bud Leavitt.
Delighted you could join us tonight, and also delighted that the Haffords are here. The Allagash Haffords and the East Millinocket Haffords. We think you're going to enjoy this little family gathering tonight. We're going to reminisce a little about the old days, the logging days on the Allagash River, the St. John, and then we're going to tell just exactly what kind of a deer season it was at Moosehorn Lodge this past season. I want you to meet my program guests. In the far left over here, where we have Mr. Hafford, Herschel, is down from East Millinocket. He and his brother Hilton run the Moosehorn Lodge in the Allagash country. The little lady over here, this is Heather Hafford. And the gray-haired, handsome gentleman here of 74 seasons of living in the Allagash, that's Calvin. And over here we have Casey. Wonderful Casey, who has a little color clash between red with an orange cap. You wear that blaze orange all season, I'll bet, huh? Calvin, good to see you.
Yes.
After all these years,
yes.
Good to have you on the machine, as they say.
Yeah, don't meet very often.
Huh? That's right. That's right. Boy, you spent all your life up there, haven't you?
All of my life, yeah.
Never had any occasion to move?
No, never did. No, never had any thought of moving.
Tell me about your life.
Well, I started out young in the woods, in the lumber woods, when it was hard. And I worked all of my life in the lumber woods. I started out when I was about 14 years old, and I worked in the woods. I swam for a few years for a crew in the woods, and being a young man, that's where they'd put you, starting out.
The rookie, the first man in.
The rookie, the first man in, yeah. Then I got to where I was a chopper, and then a team tender, and finally, after a while, I got to drive team.
You got to drive team.
I got to drive team, yeah.
But you had horses all your life right up until last year.
Right up until last year, yeah. Last fall, I gave my last horse away to get clear of him. I didn't want to sell him because it's one I had raised, and I give him to a guy that I knew that would take good care.
How long had you had him?
10 years. I'd had him 10 years, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And,
do you remember the best horse you ever had in the woods?
yes, I do. I remember the best horse I ever had in the woods. It was a own horse that I bought from a guy by the name of Gilbert Walker. He weighed about 1,800.
1,800?
Yeah, and he was a good horse, yeah. He made my living a long while for me.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, where were you working then? For LaCroix?
No, not then. I worked some for Seamard in the Fallbrook area there, and I worked for the International Paper Company, and I worked some for the Great Northern, Tom Pinkham. I didn't work in
What
the
a
pulp.
wonderful man he was.
Yeah, he was quite a man, yeah. I didn't cut no pulp for Tom. I used to cut the poles in his operation, telephone poles.
What did you look for in a good horse?
Oh, you look for heft, size, and build, and disposition. Yeah, they had a lot of good.
This one horse that stands out in your mind, what was so different about him?
He was a kind horse, and he was willing to work. Had no problem with him, and he was well able.
You'd start out what time in the morning?
Well, when it was cutting pulpwood, we usually start out around 6 and quit at 5.
How many cord would you put up a day with him?
Well, he would handle 7 cord a day easy.
He would?
Without too much problem, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He'd handle all the wood 2 men would cut, rough wood. Yeah.
Tell me about the log drives.
Well, they were pretty rugged. The log drives were quite a rugged thing. It was a longer day, harder work, and more dangerous for one thing. I mean, you was always in the shadow of drowning or getting hurt on the log drives. And we put in long days.
How many, I realize these were long logs that you would put down the Allagash and later the St. John, but how many million feet of long logs?
Well, they drove 75 million out of each.
75?
Out of each river, yeah. Out of the St. John and the Allagash River.
How long would it take you to drive the Allagash?
Well, we'd start in the last part of April, and putting the lumber in, and sometimes it'd be 1st of June before we'd be through if we had good water to keep going. And
Camped out each night?
well, they had camps along the river. They had sections along the river. So many men to a section keeping the lumber clear, but on the rears we come along, we camped here and there and everywhere, wherever we could. They always had a big crew on the rear, and they kept building up as they come along and gathering up these section crews. And when we get at the mouth of the Allegash, then's when they lay quite a lot of men off, but it would be a big crew.
What was the cooking like? What did you have for food on one of those drives, outside of beans?
That was the first thing, beans, and we had some beef and fish.
Was it pretty good, generally?
Yeah, it was okay. Yeah, it was all right. We had good cooks.
You had good cooks?
Yeah, we didn't have a variety of stuff, but what they cooked was good food, was good.
Would they stay ahead of the drive at all times?
Kind of along, well, these cooks were stationed with the
Oh, yeah.
with the sections. They were stationed right there. They had a little cook shack for them, but they usually had a boat, a towboat on the rear, and the cook cooked in that and followed the rear in.
Like a drive like the Allegash, which is a comparatively small river in contrast to the St. John, how many men would the drive employ?
Oh, 150, 200 men.
Really?
Yeah. And with that, we would start early in the spring rolling in landings. They landed that lumber along the banks of the river in high landings, and some of them 10, 12, 15 tier high according to the height of the bank when they were hauling them out. And we rolled that in all log by log and took it down the river.
Do you miss that now that you look back on it?
Well, you know, it seems to me like really in some senses of the way, there were better days because there was peace of mind, you know.
Right.
Worked hard, didn't get much, but there was peace of mind. I think back there all of our environment was just a little bit better in my way of thinking.
Well, I don't think you're wrong.
You know, we could go along them log jams and them booms that they hung out a boom. There was a boom every mile or mile and a half. There'd be a boom or two booms to keep the lumber out of the bogans and flat places and off of bars. And you would drift along them booms nearly all summer and catch what fish you wanted. Just take a canoe and drift along the boom and along the log jam.
Trout would feed off what dropped off the logs.
That's right, yeah. And when we were sluicing lumber out of Round Pond, you'd see the big trout going out with the logs. You could actually see them in the water going out with the logs, and I don't think them trout ever went back, and it'd give the smaller ones a chance to survive. And I know I lived right on the bank, brought up right on the bank of the Allegash River, and I could run down there. It was part of our living then. We fished to eat. And I could run down there and catch a mess of trout in the evening after the sun started to go down. And now you couldn't whip up a mess of trout there in a mile of the river.
Really?
Yeah.
It's gone that far back?
It's gone that far back, yeah. And I think I think back there, well, of course I know, because we had better habitat for the deer. We had a better deer herd, more healthy. And before the coyotes got in, you know, they had an easier life too. They weren't disturbed so much as
Do you feel the coyote is responsible for the loss of the deer over the years?
Quite much, yes, quite much. I guess I sent you some pictures there.
Yes,
I
you
didn't
did.
mark anything
yes,
on
you
them.
did.
Well, 2 years ago, a coyote chased a deer right in my house, or a couple of coyotes at night. I might have been watching your show, I guess, when it happened.
You mean we were that good we attracted a coyote?
Well, he attracted the deer anyway. When I opened the door, he came in.
He came right in?
Yeah, he came right in. There was 2 coyotes after him. And not long after that, a few days after that, I put on a pair of snowshoes and I circled the deer yard right down around my place there. And I put on a pair of snowshoes and I traveled about 3/4 of a mile one way. And I found 7 where they'd killed 7. So and that was a small area. It must be more other places. And,
Do you think the deer are coming back in the last few years?
boy, I don't seem to feel they are.
Well,
you know,
you have a right to an opinion.
Yeah, I don't think they are. I don't think they're coming back as near as much as we thought they would by closing the doe season. Due to the fact, I mean, this is one instance. Due to the fact that I live right in the deer yard there, and years past, I've seen high as 20 deer on a little pond that I've had there. And the late years, they've dwindled down and dwindled down. Last year, there was only 8. I only saw 8 at one time. There might have been more around, but I only saw 8 at one time.
No new fawns this spring?
I've never seen too many small deer for the last few years. Some escape. I shot or got a small deer this year, and it was a yearling deer. But some of them survive all right, but I think many of them don't. Yeah, and I think
How much damage do you think the bear do to the young deer in the spring of the year?
I don't think the bear do no ways near the damage that the coyotes do.
Can you hear coyotes at night at Allagash?
I have some tapes of coyotes. It was taken right from my window.
I know, you told me that.
And they're right in I have actually saw them right in the yard at night, moonlight nights. Yeah.
When did this start? When did you start seeing coyotes? About what year?
It started about 79 when I the first ones I saw I thought were black foxes. They were small, but I learned very soon that they were coyotes.
Did you, for a time, think they were coy dogs, so-called? You know, they called them coy dogs.
Yeah. Never knew anything about a coy dog, you know. But I actually thought they were black foxes until I...
Where do you think they came from? Think they came across the lines from Canada?
Gosh, I don't know. It seems to me like I've heard, this is not anything definite, but it seems to me like I've heard they introduced them in here.
No.
No, they didn't.
No, there's no fact to that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've heard that.
No, I'll tell you where the confusion comes there. There was some talk about introducing wolves.
Yes, yeah.
And it's still current. That has not been put totally on the back burner. But there's never been a purposeful introduction of coyotes.
I wouldn't know if they came out of the North Country or not. Seemingly, we don't hear too much about them in the North Country. It seems like they must have come probably from the West, where...
You mean the western part of the state?
Yeah.
Well, that's where they first started.
Yeah.
That's where they first started.
Yeah.
It's a funny thing, the way those things expanded across the state. They really multiplied.
Yes, they really flooded the country. Is what they've done. They're everywhere now. I mean, for a while you'd hear about them, but then when you start seeing them, you know they're there. And once they're there to stay.
Well, I got to talk to your son because his story with respect to deer is a little different than yours. Tell me about your recent season.
Well, we've had some success at our cabins in Allagash this past season. By the way, it's Moose Town Lodging.
What did I call it?
Moosehorn.
Oh. All right, I know you Moose Towners. You're all alike. I'm sorry. What did I call it? Moosehorn?
Moosehorn, yes.
Well, okay. So we got a refuge down in Washington County. I only mixed up about a couple of 100 miles, but sorry, Moose Town.
Moose Town Lodging. Yeah, we had some hunters from Pennsylvania and New Hampshire and New York that were hunting with us, and they shot 7 nice deer there this past week. Nice bucks, and they've seen quite a few deer. Of course, with the snow that we had this past couple of weeks, I think caused the deer to herd up more and begin to yard some. There's been quite a lot of snow the last 2 weeks there.
Yeah, the last 2 weeks of the season.
Yeah.
Did you see? You mentioned does. Did you see a lot of doe?
It was one in our party that saw 16 doe deer one day. I saw 6 or 7 deer last week myself, and 4 or 5 of them were doe. 4 of them were doe deer, 2 bucks.
Is that an increase over past years?
Yeah, the kill at our lodge has been better this year than it was last year or the year before.
No, but generally, did your hunters come back this fall reporting the sighting of more deer than in recent years?
Yeah, I believe they've seen a few more, but I think again because of the early snow has brought the deer there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Brought them out more.
Were they in patches, Herschel? I mean, groups of them, not all over, little groups of deer and so forth that you were running into?
Yeah, some of the hunting that I personally have done, I saw different areas where there were little groups of deer. But in this one area where the man saw the 16 doe deer, seemed to be larger groups, maybe yarding together.
What's your feeling about coyotes?
Well, I think they're doing quite a lot of damage to the deer herd, all right enough. Last year, when I was snowmobiling, after the season had closed, I saw on the Allagash River 2 or 3 carcasses, deer carcasses. And then on the snowmobile trail off of the river, I saw 3 or 4 more right in areas where the deer travel a lot. So they're doing quite a lot of damage all over the state. Everyone I talk to throughout the state of Maine, and I live in the central part of the state, and I talk to people all over about it, and they're seeing a lot of damage the coyotes are doing to the deer herd.
Mm-hmm. Are you convinced or unconvinced that the coyote represents a serious threat to the state's deer population?
Well, it's not helping it at all, for sure.
No, but do you think it's a serious threat, more so than poaching?
Oh, I think so. They have a better opportunity to hunt than the poacher has. Mm-hmm. They kill a lot of deer that aren't even seen. Poaching, of course, is probably a serious problem too, but I don't think it's as serious as the coyote problem.
Mm-hmm. What's your feeling about bears? Same question I asked your dad.
Well, I've never seen much evidence of the bear killing many deer as much as the coyote does. I think the bear is easier to get away from than a pack of coyotes. So the deer has a better chance with getting away from a bear than it does with the coyote.
Where do you think the coyote came out of?
I've never really looked into it to see or studied it at all. I have no idea. I know all of a sudden, when I was a boy growing up, I never heard much about coyotes, but in the last 10, 12 years, we've heard a lot about coyotes, seen a lot of signs, so they've come from somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about the bird hunting this year.
Bird hunting was terrible this year, everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
The bird hunting wasn't good at all.
How about you, Calvin? Did you bird hunt any?
I bird hunted a little. Not too much snow came too quick, but last year I got 12 birds through the season. And this year I never saw one.
Never saw one?
Never saw one, no. I never saw any flocks in the summer. I was in the woods quite a lot this summer, and I saw one flock of birds all summer, where usually you used to pick up a lot of birds.
One reason why he says he got 12 last year, and most people don't realize how he hunts. He shoots all of his birds with a .22. He doesn't hunt with a shotgun.
Do you?
Yeah, .22 pistol. Yeah.
Headshots?
Well, few of them.
Uh-huh.
Make a mistake once in a while and get a head.
Is he a pretty good shot?
Yeah, he's a real good shot.
Pistol or long guns?
Pardon?
Pistol or long guns?
Pistol.
You're a pistol shooter?
Yeah, well, no, I have a .22 rifle too, but I usually, when I was deer hunting, I carried my .44 Magnum and I carried the pistol for birds.
You know what I size him up as? One of those quiet guys, one of those quiet people who goes about his own way, all alone. I bet he hunts alone.
Yeah.
I could tell from just talking to you. And you're very selective in what you shoot at.
Well, yes. You quite well have to be.
Well, that's right. Yeah. That's right. But, that's an old-time hunter that speaks that way. Tell me about your non-resident hunters. How good are they? How good were they this fall?
Well, we've been fortunate to have some pretty good people that stay at our cabins. We don't have any problem with them as far as...
No, but good hunters or bad hunters?
Well, they've been getting their share of the deer. They took some nice deer this fall, so they've been doing a fairly good job. Most of them just hunt off the roads. They don't go way off in the woods, but we've had a few people that, will take their compass and map and go off anywhere they want to go, and they're doing a pretty good job hunting. Safe
Yeah.
hunters.
Yeah, they are generally.
Yeah.
They are, very much so. All right, you had good fishing this year.
I did, yes. We didn't have many fishermen at our cabins, but I fly fish every chance I get. And I caught some nice trout this summer.
You're a fly rod man.
Yes, definitely.
Definitely.
Yes.
You don't spin cast at all?
Not
Well, I
anymore.
won't say it. Not anymore. Yeah.
Not much.
Not
since I
much.
learned how to use a fly rod.
Yeah. Yeah. How long you been fly fishing?
Oh, about 4 or 5 years. I started fly fishing. Before I was always spin casting, but the last 4 or 5 years I've got into the fly fishing more.
Once you get that feel of one on a fly,
Nothing like it.
and there's nothing like it. That's exactly right. What were your favorite flies up there for trout this year?
Orange grasshopper, yellow hornbird.
Yellow hornberg.
Yeah.
The orange grasshopper. The grasshopper, never had any luck with that hornberg.
Well, I'll tell you, I caught about 95% of my fish this year on a yellow hornbird.
Did you really?
Yeah. You'll have to come up and fish with me.
What size hook?
Oh, probably a number 8, probably.
Probably an 8. You don't have any salmon waters to speak of?
Well, not up in Well,
no.
there's some salmon fishing at Two Brook Rapids or
Okay,
at
Toobrook, right.
Pelletier, mouth of Pelletier Brook. There's some
Yeah,
salmon.
yeah.
I caught a lot. They stocked the St. John River with small salmon. I caught a lot of 6 to 8 inch salmon through back, of course, this summer, just fishing in the St. John River.
Your father, Calvin, said that he thought the environment was a little better back when he was younger and more active. How do you feel about the environment? Is it changing?
Yeah, I think so. When he was saying about when he was younger, he could go and catch all the fish he wanted to in the evening. There's still some good fishing, what I call good fishing, but it's nothing compared to what it was there, in his younger days.
Are there too many people fishing?
Not in the Allagash area. There's not too many people fishing.
Mm-hmm.
Other areas of the state around where I live in East Millinocket, there's an awful lot of heavy fishing.
Mm-hmm.
But up in the northern part of the state, there doesn't seem to be as heavy a fishing as, especially the St. John and Allagash. I don't believe the rivers get fished all that hard, and there's a lot of ponds in the area that aren't really fished all that hard either.
How much ice fishing do you do?
I do that every chance I can too.
Every chance you get. I knew. I expected you.
Yeah,
What do you like about ice fishing?
just fishing. I love to fish. So
You
whether
just simply like to fish.
like to fish. Yeah, yeah,
Rather fish than hunt?
definitely yes.
You would.
Yeah, I have a brother Hilton that operates the Moose Town Lodging. He'd rather hunt than fish, but I'd rather fish than hunt.
Do your people speak about fishing much when they come up in the fall of the year?
Only if you bring up the subject. They want to know where the deer are and what's going on, but as soon as you start talking about fishing, then their eyes brighten up and they want to know where they can catch some fish on a fly hook.
Yeah. Fishing is a big attraction, particularly to non-residents.
Yeah, yeah.
If you could be a boy again, one more time, what would you do with your life?
Do it all over.
Just exactly as you've done it.
Yep. It took everything that I done to get me where I am, and I'm well satisfied.
What did your dad, what did your mother do? Were they born up there?
Born up there, yeah.
Were they?
Same old hard timers, yeah.
Your father a woodsman too?
Yeah.
Boy,
That's all there was in that country was woods.
what did he offer for stories that you remember?
Pardon?
What did he offer? What did your father? Do you remember any
Nothing.
stories?
No, my grandfather. I was brought up by my grandfather, and I trailed him. He was a trapper, and I got a lot of my woods experience behind him when I was a small boy, like this guy sitting here.
And he would be out, what, 30 days, 6 weeks during the trapping season?
Well, no, he usually be out 2 or 3 days at a time. He had a certain trap line, and he run that, and sometimes it'd take 2 days, sometimes 3, according to how the breaking was on snowshoes, and he had different stations.
How many beaver would he get in a year, do you remember?
He didn't trap too many beavers, I remember. I don't know as if the beaver season was closed back in them.
Well, there was a closed period.
Yeah, but there was a long time.
That's
but
right.
He trapped foxes
Mink?
and
Did he?
mink and black cat, and then there was a while there was a season on them. They didn't, you wasn't allowed to take them, but mostly foxes, bobcat, and weasel, anything that had a fur on it for hide.
And you wouldn't do it a bit different again if you had a chance?
Well, you know, it might not come out just like it is right now.
Yeah.
And one little thing changed would maybe change the whole thing. And it's like I say, I'm very well satisfied right where I am today.
You know, Calvin has written a good number of songs about that country, and I've listened to one of his tapes, and so dramatically and so colorfully he tells about the old days and the old timers in parts of the Allagash country, moose towners, and the people who lived there and how difficult it was to scratch out a living, and just a typical state of Maine man. All his life in one area, 74 years. His parents and his forebearers, they lived there, and it's a hard, the way he best describes it, it's kind of a hard go to make a living and to exist in the kind of weather that they have, the changing weather. Yet, on reflection, he looks back on it, and he'd do it again the same way. I think that's wonderful.
Well, it's all I ever knew, for one thing. There might have been a better life, there might have been an easier life, but I don't know how it might have turned out for me. I am well satisfied.
You
Wonderful.
get good health now, and you get great grandchildren.
Not good health, no. I've
Not
had
good health?
Oh, I've had a couple bad heart attacks, and
Boy, you look pretty good for a man that's had a couple
well,
of setbacks.
I work every day. Just seems I was listening to this guy there,
That's
and I don't have no diet. I eat the old bacon and eggs.
The Haffords from Allagash in East Millinocket. Good night, everyone.
Yep. Good night. It's good to have been here.
Wandering along the mountain track, and as I go and out to sing, my knapsack on my back, the